handing it over, as we can see in these pictures, to Benny Gantz. And let's now bring in our diplomatic correspondent, Ellie Hockenberg, who joins us. Ellie, we are seeing these live images coming from Jerusalem now. A really big day in Israeli politics. Ellie, I'll come back to you shortly. Let's listen to Rivlin.
Chief of Staff, Member of Knesset Benny Gantz, as one to be appointed to form the government. Therefore, and according to Section 7 to the Basic Law of the government, I'm going to hand to you, as I did just now, the possibility to form a government. The law allows you 28 days, sir, as of tomorrow, to start forming the government. This is a very short time. However, because of the circumstances of a national emergency, international as well, this is perhaps too long. The seriousness of the hour and the challenges facing us compel us to form a government of Israel and for the people of Israel. In this ceremony today is not taking away the responsibility for all the other factions to create the conditions to form a wide government as much as possible at this crisis. As I mentioned, perhaps the forming of a government early will have to compel us to have some interim arrangements, but I have no doubt in my mind that this is what the people expect from its leaders at this hour. 4 elections are not possible, and the keys to form a government of Israel is now in your hands, sir, and also in the hands of all the elected leaders. On behalf of this dear nation, the nation sitting in Israel, and for the benefit of all the citizens of Israel, I wish you success, sir. Thank you. Thank you. Mr. President, citizens of Israel, these days are not regular days. The period in which we are living is not similar to any other. Israel is now in the beginning of a serious crisis. At the moment, hundreds of thousands of families are secluded at home. Mothers and fathers who are worried about this mysterious virus protecting their children and themselves. Some of them have lost already their place of work and their livelihood, and some of them may hear about it very soon. Grandparents find themselves in isolation in order to protect their own life, and the loneliness that even in regular days is not very easy is becoming at this time to even more difficult. And together with all that, the medical staff whose heroism and bravery to take risk in order to save life deserves a salute from all of us. These are the doctors, the nurses, men and women, Jews and Arabs, all of them. They are all ours. In such days, the leaders are required to put aside any personal consideration. I give you my word. I'm going to do everything in order to form within days, a few days, hopefully, a national, patriotic, wide government, if that will be possible. A government in which I will represent and I will serve the voters of blue and white, the voters of the Likud, the voters of all the parties, from left and from right. I will serve all the citizens of Israel. A government in which I am going to protect the interests of the settlers in Judea and Samaria, and the Arab citizens, and the people of the periphery and the center. A government that I will lead in order to heal the Israeli society from the coronavirus and also from the virus of hatred and friction. We together are going to overcome in joint efforts and in responsible behavior on the coronavirus. As for the hatred and friction, only leaders who see the benefit of the people can overcome before their own benefits. Since the coronavirus attacked us, I was silent. I did not convene bombastic press conference, and I refused to attack the Prime Minister and his ministers, as others may have done in my position. The Israeli society is fed up, and so am I, in this way of hatred, of friction, and lack of uncertainty. Each and every one of you who are now at home or in isolation or in your workplace almost empty is now looking up to the national leadership. You expect from it, and from me personally, to take Israel out of the stalemate, the paralysis, to do the right thing at this time and to unite all of us and to put Israel before everything else. The corona crisis is not the most serious crisis in the history of this country. We had existential crises. We knew painful times and also temporary times. We overcame all of them together. The Jewish and Israeli history is full of examples where we united forces and we strengthened our responsibility to one another, and we distanced anybody who tried to poison the unity and the common fate. And I'm saying of all the citizens of Israel, I reiterate, during the establishment of the state, all the undergrounds fought shoulder to shoulder in the army. And also after the Al-Tanena crisis, even Begin said, and I quote, "We're not going to open fire, we're not going to have a civil war while we have an enemy at our doors." This is end of the quote, and I add, very modestly, I will not allow to have a civil war here ever. As for the economic area, we went together through the rations time, together when the state was established. Today we overcame together, and of the world crisis, we stood together, also facing enemies in the Yom Kippur War. We were together. And in the Gulf War, when the whole country was in sealed rooms, and all the IDF operations until this very day, always the Israeli spirit prevailed, and we did it together. I suggest to any decision maker not to be dragged into panic and not to put the public into hysterics. This crisis we have to conduct cool-headed and to have quiet and security. We're going to overcome it. Together with the medical and economical forces, we will learn how they managed to contain it in some of the countries of the world, and we'll make sure that we have enough kits for tests in the hospitals. I sincerely hope that the reports about non-protected medical staff and the lack of testing kits is just a rumor. We will have time also to learn the lessons and the urgent need to rehabilitate the entire medical system. It's about time that Israel will have a hasbara, information, body to explain exactly to the people and to the citizen everything that's happening. It's about time we'll have a chief of police, a Knesset, a cabinet functioning, and it is forbidden. As you said, Minister, we cannot have a fourth round of election. That's going to undermine the people of Israel. Elections that will not be able to help the businesses that are not functioning, students who are not learning, people who were fired, many self-independent people who don't know how they're going to finish this month. Mr. President, I'd like to thank you personally for giving me the mandate and especially for your great care about the society in Israel. And I'd like, with your permission, to thank all the members of Knesset who recommended me to form the new government. This process was accompanied by racist statements and threats and voices that are really worrisome, because we're going to face perhaps the collapse of Israeli democracy. It was always accompanied by illegitimate attempt of the current Prime Minister to evade justice by attacking the courts in Israel. No one of us is greater than these people. And in Israel, there's not one person who's greater than the Zionist and Israeli project. The one who's going to attack the Jewish and democratic administration in Israel will bring about the end of the political arena and will be condemned forever. Israel is made up of many people, soldiers in the army, soldiers in reserves, teachers, doctors, manufacturing workers. Many of them are going to be a wall in an attempt to stop the democracy from becoming a dictatorship. We cannot live with dictatorship. In the spirit of these days, I now hand you my elbow to all the heads of factions in the Knesset and also to Benjamin Netanyahu. And I call upon them to put down their verbal destructive weapon and the hatred aside. I call upon them to join me and to my colleagues in the leadership of Blue and White, who are standing united in the journey to heal the Israeli society. I always wanted unity. I wanted a unity that doesn't come on account of democratic values or statehood in Israel. It's about time also of the heads of the other parties, especially Netanyahu, to decide whether he is willing to walk along this path. It's about time to enough of these empty words and great deeds. We want to put aside the boycotts and the swords and to reconnect all the tribes of Israel and all the citizens of Israel. We're going to overcome the corona. We're going to get over this crisis. We're going to prevail over the hatred. We haven't lost hope yet. Thank you, Mr. President.
Blue and White Party leader Benny Gantz, they're now in possession of that mandate just signed off on by